Hello world, I'm Chris Pirillo, and you're watching another live edition of the LockerGnome Daily Report, or TLDR for short, your daily dose of geek news, product views, and answers that you can use, like an answer to the question, Chris, why aren't you doing the same thing that other YouTubers that like geeky things do? Well, it's because I'm me, really. That should be the beginning and the end of it. I like doing these types of videos live. I like covering a wide array of things on a daily basis, and I love doing it live because I hate video editing. I'm just not much of a video producer as much video as I produce, including the vlogs. And no, if you were looking for an answer to the question, isn't Diana supposed to give birth today? Well, maybe is the answer. This is her due date, September 1st. It is Labor Day, and I am laboring away for you. Even though you don't have to work, these 3-day weekends are kind of nice, and it's also nice to know that we have a Labor Day for those who have come before us, who fought and believe in the rights of labor and the people who do labor away to keep society going. So now that that's really the only political matter I want to cover today. It's not even really political. So Diana has not given birth yet. It may happen. I asked her earlier, and she said, I feel it's going to be 3 in the morning tonight, which doesn't make sense. 3 in the morning tonight. So later in the middle of the night, tomorrow, within, about 12 hours from now, she thinks it's going to happen. It's going to be magical. Yesterday, before going to bed, she felt the baby have a lot of movement, so today is her due date. Officially, which would be hilarious. I really want her to give birth today, not only because, I just kind of want to move forward with things, and I'm sure she's ready for it as well, but because it's Labor Day. To have, child labor on Labor Day, to me, it's just perfect. September 1st, nice number, September 1. We are at 927 patrons as of today, not quite 1,000. Still, at the beginning of every month, we get a new cycle of patrons, it seems, but 927 strong. Soon, at some point, I hope, keeping my fingers crossed, we will reach the 1,000 patron threshold. And then at that point, when we reach 1,000, I'm thinking about juggling a few other things and doing even more video for the patrons specifically. Of course, I like doing these videos for everybody, especially live. A lot of news to cover over the past weekend. A couple of product views before I get into that. I didn't have a chance to dive too deeply into the Dart Stylus. Now, my dad and mom are still here, and I wanted to ask my dad, had you ever felt that the iPad, which you use frequently, or even iPhone, which you also use frequently, needed a stylus?
Not for them, but I do for like the GPS in the car.
Oh, you want a GPS? You want a stylus for your GPS?
Yeah, in the car.
So old tech for old tech, then is that?
I guess. I don't know. It's just easier because my finger.
Right. He's got bigger fingers. As you get older, your fingers get bigger.
Yeah. Well, and that happens on the phone sometimes.
And your ears.
Yeah, and they get full.
So actually, I'm not trying to slag the stylus at all. In fact, this is one of the better styluses that I've had a chance to use, and you don't even have to pair it by way of Bluetooth to get her going. Right there, now it's on. See the little blue light there? The Dart Stylus. If you're someone who needs a stylus for note-taking, and I do recommend that more so than just using a finger, for note-taking, for any kind of art that you might be doing on a tablet, doesn't have to be an iPad, if you're looking for a good capacitive stylus that has a replaceable tip, very, 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 very fine pressure point. This is probably, in terms of the pressure, right there. It's not the pressure. Hang on. Let me just read the spec exactly. 2mm tip, compatible with Apple and Android tablets, etc., etc. Does not need Bluetooth. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The 2mm tip. It's a very fine point. I didn't mean to say pressure. Pressure is completely different, I realize. This is an active pen, though. For those of you wondering, an active stylus. And so, this need to take notes. You take a stylus. Otherwise, you lose your finger because you'll wear it down to a nub. You walk around like a nub. Not to say that if you have a nub for a finger, it's a bad thing. I'm just saying you don't want to use your finger when a stylus will suffice. The other product view I wanted to share is something that I don't think I talked about this very much last week, if I did at all. I picked up the LEGO Ideas Exosuit, and what's so neat about this is that, number one, it's a LEGO Ideas project, but a couple things I love about this. Pete and Eve are the 2 minifigures that are included in this set. So it was basically created by a fan, and 10,000 people voted for it. LEGO said, yeah, we'll produce it. What's neat about this is not that it's an exosuit. That's not really what throws me. It's the fact that these minifigures are green. And LEGO, in the classic space design, never produced green minifigures. Green classic space minifigures. They had blue and black and white and red. And blue, white, yellow. Yellow was the other one. They did not produce green until now. The LEGO community is kind of excited about it. I am as well. I'm probably more excited the fact that both a man and a woman are represented with this piece of amazing futuristic technology. I think it's great. I think the more I kind of open my mind to understanding that this world is getting smaller and smaller, the less I tend to view people as man, woman, this, that, or the other thing. I mean, we're just people. People are people. And never before, I think, I think humanity has ever really seen something like the internet where you don't necessarily know who's on the other side of the screen. I mean, if you can't see them, you just know them by a handle or a username or an avatar. But to think that they could be anybody. Shape, size, color, creed, background, whatever. A person is a person is a person is a person. And I think that's rather amazing, and maybe we can begin to respect each other, with, in respect to our shared passions, our shared interests, our shared goals, and not so much get caught up in the nuances that tend to trip us up. And, maybe at some point in the very distant future, the idea of racism or sexism or anything of the kind that really serves to tear us apart as a species will be a thing of the past. And I think it'll happen eventually. I don't think it'll happen in my lifetime, sadly. How would you like to win a Canon EOS Rebel T3 DSLR? If you want, you can. Head over to, there's a chance, I'm not saying we're giving one away to everybody, deals.lockergnome.com. Talked about this last week. Very, very important. Check it out if you haven't already. We are posting daily deals for you. Right there, deals.lockergnome.com. And here's the thing. I'll talk about it until I'm blue in the face or blue in the shirt. This is another fine shirt from Jinx. Love it. You can see the word Jinx somewhere in the bottom. Blue in the shirt, blue in the face. We're giving things away every day. And, of course, we've got discounts and sales going on there as well. So we're making everybody happy. We're doing our best. I mean, to bring happiness to you. I think you've got to find that happiness within yourself to be happy. Via Robert Dyer, he shared this link, social media and the spiral of silence. And this is, it's kind of like the idea of a vocal minority. Sometimes when you're looking at an article or reading a page, you see comments, even on a YouTube video, you think that because most of the comments are negative or talking to the contrary, that there's no basis of I guess, fact in the article itself or the content itself. The idea that social media can be used for anybody to share their thoughts, whatever they're thinking at any given moment, doesn't make them right. And the people who tend to speak up aren't always right. They're just vocal. And so sometimes the people who have opinions, believe it or not, social media, even though it's easy to share your opinions, some people who are very opinionated actually go as far as to hold opinions to themselves. For as much as I might put out on social media today, social, website, Twitter, Facebook, even YouTube, there are some things you'll never know. You just never. I did something today I'm never going to talk about. My parents know about it, and it was, it was something that was positive, I thought, but I'm never going to talk about it. It's just something that I just don't need to talk about. I don't feel I need to share that with everybody. Some people overshare. Some people just don't share enough, and some people don't share at all, and they don't feel the need to do that. So, because social is just this deluge, this constant flow of knowledge and information and voices, sometimes opinions can get drowned out in the din of noise. And so it's something to consider with the more people who seem to be sharing their thoughts online. There are still a vast majority of people who don't. To this point, or I should say to this end, for years when I've talked about community, it doesn't surprise me that a lot of people are inactive. Some people, they make pot shots and they knee-jerk, armchair quarterbacking. Oh, your views are dropping because you're doing this. Well, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You're guessing. You're adding 2 and 2 and coming up with 7. You think it sounds fine, and it may be a cogent point that you're making, but unfortunately, there's a lot that is kind of not seen or not heard. And in the flow of a community online, communicating with people, most people don't say anything. Most people don't do anything. Most of the patrons, I know a lot of them. I don't know every one of them. Even though it's still a very high 927. That's the number we're at today. So even a lot of those patrons, they just want to support. They just want to see this thing, whatever the hell this is, continue to go and grow. And I'm very happy about that. But it's just the nature of the beast. Most people just will not share their thoughts, or it's very, very rare. It's that people do step forward and share their thoughts. They lurk, and that's normal. It's a part of a behavior that's not just on the internet, but pretty much throughout society. So, pretty fascinating article, or read if you're interested at all with connecting with people online, and I assume most people are. I am. That's the kind of stuff that interests me. By way of patron Earl Green, and this was on my radar anyway, but MSN Messenger is no more. Or as Diana's family would say, no mas, Spanish. I'm boning up on my Spanish. Her family's around right now for hopefully what's going to be the birth of baby Pirillo here in the next few days. MSN Messenger is no more. And I can't tell you the last time I used MSN Messenger. I don't even use Skype all that often. I use it, but not really all that often for messaging back and forth between the people that I want to communicate with. Used to be a big deal. Now, not so much anymore. So MSN Messenger, no more. I don't think anybody's shed a tear for that loss. I just haven't seen, since the advent, or really the explosion of smartphones, everything's gone to a mobile app. And communication between one smart device, like a smartphone and a tablet, or a tablet, is kind of supplanted the idea of these traditional instant messengers. I think it's interesting that a structure like iMessage can survive in a day and age where the more accessible the communication nexus is, the more likely people are going to use it. So, for example, iMessage is just for iOS and OS X, Apple's world. I don't think they're going to reach much beyond that, and they don't necessarily need to. But then again, they're not looking to be a messaging champion. They're just creating a service. They've got their own service. That's all they need. That's all they're looking for. But for a third party, another entity, they've got to be on every platform where users are. Well, anymore it's iOS, Android. They're pretty much leading the fray. Yeah, Windows to a certain degree. But it used to be that you'd go through a big brand for communication, MSN, AOL, Yahoo at some point as well. But anymore, not so much. I stopped using. I'm trying to think when I just stopped using instant messaging. 3 years ago, I think is when I stopped actively using it. I still, every once in a while, I'll get someone say, can you use MSN? Can you use AOL? AIM? No. In fact, it's funny. AOL, or AOL's Instant Messenger, AIM, kind of started out as a project, just kind of like, let's just see what happens. And then it exploded from there because it didn't really exist. Something like that, direct chat between friends just didn't exist. And, it's kind of been that way and will continue to be that way. And we're now at the point with most messaging services that seem to be getting a lot of attention where the information that's being shared is not ethereal, it's temporal. So if we're in a time paradox, danger, Will Robinson, danger. The idea like Snapchat where the story's only alive for a brief time is kind of important, or becoming increasingly important for people who just want to share the information then have it disappear from everywhere entirely. And I guess, I see a value for needing a communication channel like that, but it's just interesting. We're no longer limited by those big brands in terms of how we communicate with each other. We can get to, any one of these services with relative ease, or a new one springs up, and that's where people go, and that's where everybody else follows. So it's fascinating to me. Doesn't surprise me at all that MSN Messenger is now pretty much gone. It was not just used in the U.S., but certainly around the world. I think, especially in China. It was a lot of MSN Messenger users. Not so much anymore. Via patron Earl Green, and he brings up this other story about Bitcoin's one of Bitcoin's earliest adopters talking about cryogenically freezing his body, and Earl wanted to know if I'd ever consider that. And I don't know if I've ever been asked this question. I'll ask my dad this as well. I suppose. I mean, you always see those sci-fi movies or shows where they get cryogenically frozen and then unfrozen, and something's happening that's really horrific in the future. That's what would worry me, really. Yeah, I would, if it was possible to do, yes. I wouldn't know when I'd want to wake up, though. 500 years in the future, 1,000 years in the future. I would say, this is what I'd want. If I could be cryogenically frozen, I think they can do it now. I mean, technology is not exactly a commonplace that you can go down to the local convenience store and get cryogenically frozen, or get a DIY kit. So somewhere online. I'd do it, but I would want to be woken up after we had established communication with benevolent extraterrestrial species or civilization, and had a relationship with them. That's and so it may be 3,000 years from now, 8,000, 10,000 years from now, who knows? But yeah, I'd do it. Would you be cryogenically frozen? I know you hate the cold.
Yeah, it would be
He
a
hates
hard
the cold.
thing to do. I'm not sure what I think about it. Being older, had a lot of experiences. It'd be kind of, if you could do it, if it was possible, yeah, that would give me a little time to catch up with all my grandchildren. If I could maybe put it out maybe 20 years.
So
Then
you'd
all
choose
my-
a date.
Like the new grandbaby would be in their 20s. So then I would know them as an older child, or an older person.
Right.
Which would be kind of neat, because chances are pretty well I won't get to see that.
Yeah, well, lifespans are getting longer and longer and longer.
True, but I'd have to live to be...
Well, good luck.
110.
Good luck.
Yeah.
There's a woman in Mexico, I saw this little story, I think 127 years old. I don't know if that was verified. But yeah, I believe, age, people are getting older and older, which isn't a bad thing, or longevity. I'd certainly want to be around for quite a while. So, this is something that a couple of people had sent me links to. There's been, I'd say, discord within the community of people who love Star Wars. And it largely because, not just the prequels, but because what George Lucas has done with the original films that we may have seen in theaters or as we were growing up. And put me in the camp of the group that doesn't mind some of the tweaks that were made in later years with the special edition. So what fans are doing is they're kind of, they're not yelling back at Lucas. I mean, Lucas really doesn't have much say about, what happens with Star Wars at this point. It's really in Disney's camp. But there's something called the despecialized edition of the original trilogy. And the despecialized edition basically is taking bits and pieces from these various issues of Star Wars, and I don't mean issues like comic books, I mean issues of the movies of Star Wars, and made, a trilogy as it was originally aired or broadcast or, put on film in theaters back when I was a kid. And I'm certainly not a kid anymore. So it's just fascinating to me. The headline here that I'm reading from, after having watched some explanation about the Harmy Star Wars Despecialized Edition, kind of behind the scenes, it was fascinating to me. George Lucas wants desperately to preserve old movies unless they're his, so fans are trying to do it instead. And I think that's the right way of going. I think Disney would be wise to basically take what these fans have done in relation to putting these the classic Star Wars movies together and reissuing them in super high quality, and I'd be a fan of that. I think that there is a place for the original trilogy. I think there's also a place for the special edition. I do think Lucas went a little too far by doing a few things in the later years after the initial special edition was released. He just kept screwing with it, and I think there's a fine line, when you're messing with a classic, and I think people like Star Wars, not because it's got always has the latest and greatest special effects, but it's a good story, it's good characters, and I think this is one of the reasons, beyond being fantasy in the universe, space, and thinking and imagining galaxies, that are completely independent of ours, the idea that, because it's not exactly, Star Wars is not exactly sci-fi. It isn't. Star Trek is more sci-fi than Star Wars. Some I'm sure would argue with me, but my point is that Star Wars is more fantasy. It's been described as a space opera. The fact that George took a hard-nosed approach to trying to restore old movies, but refused to let fans do that for the movies that he created. I'm not going to go as far as to say it's hypocritical, but I think he's missing the point in not really letting fans revel in what made those original movies so good. What made us want to latch onto those stories and carry them throughout life. And that, in many ways, I have. I was thrilled the other day to find out someone had mentioned that Vader in Dutch means father. And I know I talked about it in TLDR, and it was the title of a vlog over the weekend. But it was kind of fun. it was kind of fun to know that. I didn't know that Vader. I mean, maybe I'd heard it once, but I didn't make the leap. And then when it was re-explained to me, by the way, those are the patrons. This list, by the way, you saw back there, will be refreshed as your pledges go through for this month of September, because Patreon does it on a different clip. So anyway, I thought it was a fascinating read. If you're interested in the original Star Wars trilogy, check out that specific edition and what fans have been doing to restore that. I've yet to see, the only one I really want to see in terms of fan-driven Star Wars tweaks right now, because there's a few of them, the only one I want to see is the Phantom Edit. That's the one I want to see. That's someone basically edited the Phantom Menace to remove Jar Jar and clean up a few other issues that fans had with the Phantom Menace. That's the one. Yeah, sorry, Dad. Dad's the only Jar Jar fan. If you have any Jar Jar crap you want to get rid of, don't send it to me. Send it to Dad. You can send it courtesy of Dad, or courtesy of me to Dad. I don't want any Jar Jar stuff. No Jar Jar. No Jar Jar allowed. Dad'll take it. Dad's going to start the Jar Jar Museum. Don't do that, Dad. There's enough hate in the world. We don't need to preserve it in plastic. The only Jar Jar I want is the Jar Jar in carbonite. There's a figure. It was at San Diego Comic-Con when I went a couple of years ago. Google has sent invites for a September 15th India event in India. And it's a guess that it's going to be the Android launch, Android One launch, a product that's not exactly bleeding edge, but a product that's meant to be driven by Google to keep Android reined in, and specifically in areas of the world that may not always, have enough. What's the easiest way to put it? Not enough. People don't have the resources to get the latest and greatest smartphones, but they have to be protected. They have to be, put inside an ecosystem that's going to protect them. And part of that is Google controlling Android, and instead of letting it be the Wild West and letting it go. That's the beauty of Android. You can take it, you can tweak it a million ways, but that could create a problem, especially if you've got millions, if not billions of people at some point using this platform and not having the latest security updates, not having, a single brand to go through. And so the idea of Android One, creating a more cutting-edge product, an Android flagship for less than the first world countries. That's probably the best way to frame it, so that the power of Android can come hand in hand with the security-minded Google. Oh, speaking of, I don't think I mentioned this on Friday, but on OS X, this is a pretty big deal for Windows users. Google Chrome is now 64-bit, has been on Windows for some time. That's just an automatic update if you have a 64-bit version of Windows. If you have OS X, if you're on the beta channel for Chrome, which I am, you now have 64-bit Chrome, which, better memory management, allegedly some processes run faster. I haven't seen any specific benchmarks around that. But either way, I'm very happy to be on the 64-bit version of Chrome on OS X, if only in the beta right now. Will likely be final whenever the final code ships within a month or two. Google's usually pretty good at turning those things around quickly. So even though Android One is not likely going to be for most of the people watching this video, I think it's very, very important for Google to do something like this, and I've been waiting for quite some time. And Google is just the company to pull this off. So another big bit of news, and I've met him a couple times, and we used to write for the same magazine together. Anand Shimpi of Anand Tech, a tech journalist for years, and I would say a journalist in just about every sense of the word. I always trusted his analysis. I never felt that I was getting anything other than what he believed was actual empirical evidence related to the stuff that he was reporting on. I thought he is a leading example of what a tech journalist can and should be. He's basically retiring, and more power to him. I understand that you get so far in life, you just when you do the same thing for 10, 15 years, you don't want to do it anymore. It gets old. Some people, I go back to what I said at the beginning of this video, even though knowing a lot of people didn't tune in to this point in the video. You just get tired of doing the same thing. You got to change it up for yourself. Otherwise, you just get bored. And that's, technology is it's been that way for me for quite some time. I'm still fascinated with technology, but for different reasons than a lot of people who might watch technology videos are. I want to talk about the deeper impact of technology with life and society and us as humans and this condition that we're in, and how technology impacts that. I'm not going to sit here and, fanboy over the specs of the latest whatever. It just doesn't interest me, or it interests me, to a certain point. it interests me to see what that unlocks or how that changes our lives in a positive way, hopefully, not necessarily a negative way. He's retiring. Anand's retiring, and he's going to Apple. So congratulations. That is, wow. You know what? I've had a chance to work with some rather large tech companies. Never had a chance to work with Apple. I don't think Apple would take me, though. It's sad. I would love to work for Apple. I would. I know a couple people who work for Apple. And it's kind of nice to know someone who works for Apple. And I don't just mean the Apple store. It'd be neat. It'd be kind of neat to work of all of them. Because I got a job offer. I've had 2 or 3 job offers from some of the bigger tech companies. I'm not going to name any names, but it was a possibility that I may have worked with some bigger tech entities in the past. And have worked with them in certain respects over the years. But, yeah, Apple's, I'd say, if I were to go, and people would be like, well, that wouldn't surprise me at all. But of course, I wish Anand all the best, and think that Apple's really gaining someone with a massive amount of integrity, which is not something I can say for a lot of people that are, they're considered tech journalists. I think there are a lot of tech non-journalists, people putting their opinions out there and not really taking an approach to reporting technology without necessarily investing so much of themselves into it, where they can't allow the competition or what they perceive as competition to win because they like one product over another. And I'm sure some people would find fault with Anand just as they'd find fault with me, but I think Anand is one of those shining examples of what a tech journalist should be. And I wish him well, and I think Apple has gained one hell of a. I think Anand is more than an employee. I think I'd put him in the square in the camp of evangelist. I don't think he's going into it. I don't know if his position's necessarily been reported on, but some position beyond an employee, and I think that's where Anand sits. Maybe not director level, but he's clued in. And he gets it at such a granular level, but he also understands the value of overarching experience. And I think Anand, his head's in the game, and I'm very excited about this. I'd be just as excited for Anand to go to any major tech company beyond what he's been doing for, well, God, ever since I can remember. eSports, big deal for some. I'm not really into it. I don't watch people do video game stuff. Video gamers can draw real crowds and big money. Doesn't surprise me at all. I've been wanting to, and I've talked about this lately with a couple of the local Minecrafters. I'm thinking about doing some kind of geeky, tech, gamey, that's not really the word I want to use, game-oriented, tech-oriented, geek-oriented event for people who do YouTube-y stuff in Seattle. Kind of like a vlogger fair for geeks. I think that's a fair way that I would describe it. And so I don't know if it'd necessarily be tied into esports, but I think there's a fascination with that's not going to go away anytime soon. I would certainly encourage my child. Now, I realize this is going to make a lot of kids jealous, possibly. I'll encourage my kid to play video games. Absolutely. Boy or girl. I got no problem with that. It'd be here we go, Dad. You say you want sports? Well, can we concede? Can we say esports?
Yeah.
All right. That's it. And so it was done, and so it was written. Dad, you've now got we will develop a child that will be into esports. That's fine. I can deal with that.
But then they'll want to go out and try it.
No, they won't. No sports games, like traditional sports games. What is this crap? Anyway, esports is a big deal. So I'd be happy to kind of support that for my child and potentially, leverage my knowledge against, content creation and community engagement around that and, help that child and enjoy the things that the child enjoys, boy or girl. I think it's very, very exciting. And I'm very, very excited to see that kind of grow as a legitimate type of business, an outlet. I mean, it's fascinating to me. I'll watch, but not like some people watch. So as a matter of fact, this is the next to dovetail into this article here. Twitch TV, just acquired by Amazon. Their peak viewership now rivals the average primetime viewers of some cable networks. More people watch Twitch video games, Dad, than some of the news networks that you watch.
Really?
Yeah, primetime.
I like news.
I like news as well. I enjoy news. But I'm saying that in terms of entertainment, it's a new form of entertainment. I think it's fascinating. It's interesting. I've been wanting to Twitch for some time. I just haven't figured out the game. Maybe I have to get an Xbox One or a PS4 to do the Twitch
I want to learn
Tetris. What?
I want to learn Minecraft.
Okay, I know. We got to wait. I've been waiting to hear back from Basher and his crew. We got to loop back with Clara. Tweet Clara and Basher and say, when are we going to learn Minecraft? They were supposed to come over, but he had a conflict the other day. So your dad wants to learn Minecraft. I kind of want to learn Minecraft too. I mean, I know enough to be dangerous, but I mean, not to the same degree as some of these kids. They live it. It's fascinating to me. I want it because I love the world of Lego, obviously. But I know Minecraft is a big deal, and it may, expand, some of the things that I'm doing. Maybe the next step for the stuff that I want to do is, potentially Twitch, potentially Minecraft. I've talked about it before in the past, but just didn't have the right structure for it. Maybe that's possible now that I know 10 of the world's leading Minecrafters who now live in Seattle. It's fascinating. A little light bit of news to round out today. And by the way, I'm watching the live comments as they come in on the live video stream on YouTube here. And thank you for bearing with me for a half hour. 75% of IKEA's catalog is computer-generated imagery. You know what? Some people, Diana's not a huge fan of IKEA. I love it. I don't enjoy putting things together like the IKEA kind of stuff. I have, and I do like that after it's done, it's constructed. Sometimes going through the instructions, that's where I kind of, get frustrated because some of these instructions seem to be, the instructions for some of these assemble yourself or DIY, not exactly DIY, assemble it yourself furniture sets were written by baboons who speak Swahili. Like, there's no rhyme or reason sometimes, and I'm like... And I've been tripped up by really poorly written diagrams, or instructions. So but I enjoy doing it. A lot of the furniture that I have or that we've picked up in the house has been assemble it yourself, including the set that you've seen here, constructed obviously well enough for this particular setup. Go.tagjag.com/desk is where you can get more information about what you see around you. This desk still for sale. Stands the test of time, and hopefully I will as well. I thought it was fascinating. The catalog, not even real furniture anymore, it's just computer generated. How long do you think it's going to be before we get computer generated furniture itself outright? I think it's ways in the future. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed today's little broadcast. The question I'm going to answer today, the question that was asked, I covered in AMA last week, and so I'm going to actually choose a different question for everybody. I do 5 separate live streams every day. 4 of those are exclusive to the patrons. 1 is public, and that's the one I'm going to do today. But I haven't figured out what I really want to dive deep on right now. The question that was going to be asked was how, picking a pet, or how do you know when, how to pick a pet. But I really covered that, I thought, extensively in Friday's AMA. So I want to dive a little deeper on a topic that's maybe a bit geekier for our community. So stay tuned for that. I'll be publishing that live into this YouTube channel. Of course, we got the classic vlog YouTube channel where you can watch me become a father, hopefully in the next couple of days. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks again for liking what you see, if you do like what you see. Thank you for subscribing, sharing, commenting, doing whatever you got to do, man. I hope you have a great week. I hope you had a great weekend. I hope you're having a good day. If nobody told you today, someone cares about you. I care about you, even though I can't see you. I don't necessarily know who you are. I know many of you by name, some of you by face. But just so you know, there's someone out there who absolutely cares about you. At this point, I'm going to leave you to your own devices. We'll see you later.